Beginning in the 1500s, the power and presence of the centralized state began to grow dramatically in the daily lives of ordinary people. Before this period, most matters, whether criminal disputes, taxation, or local conflicts, were handled at the local level. If two peasants had a disagreement, they appealed to their local lord, not to the king. Crimes were investigated and judged by the nobility, not by royal courts. Even tax collection happened through city governments, rather than through direct contact with royal officials. Only the nobility and soldiers had meaningful interaction with the central government. Prior to the 16th century, soldiers were typically knights, wealthy nobles on horseback serving the king. But by the early 1500s, European armies began transforming. Monarchs increasingly relied on large forces of commoner foot soldiers, who were easy and inexpensive to train and equip compared to costly mounted knights. Today, of course, the central government touches every aspect of life: taxes, licenses, roads, national defense, social services. But this level of governmental influence first emerged in the 16th century with the rise of a political system known as absolutism. In early modern Europe, two institutions traditionally shared authority within a state: the prince and the estate. The prince, a generic term for the ruler, a king, emperor, elector, duke, or other sovereign. Regardless of size or rank, every prince held supreme authority within his own territory, and laws were issued in his name. The estates were representative bodies designed to ensure that the prince governed in accordance with the established laws and customs of the realm. These assemblies varied in structure and composition across different regions. In England, this role was fulfilled by Parliament. In France, by the Estates General. In the Holy Roman Empire, by the Imperial Diet, and in Sweden, by a system of estates that notably included representatives of rural peasants alongside other social groups. These bodies represented the major social orders: nobility, clergy, and commoners. They usually met by class. France had separate chambers for clergy, nobility, and commoners. England had the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Most members were not elected. Nobles sat by birthright, clergy by office, and others by appointment or royal service. Even where elections existed, such as England's Commons, voting restrictions meant that the vast majority of people never voted at all. Absolutism emerged when monarchs began to claim they no longer needed the consent of the estates to govern. In places like France, kings gradually stopped summoning these assemblies or simply ignored their recommendations. Importantly, absolutism did not mean that kings could do anything they wished. They were still expected to respect the laws and traditional customs of the land. However, absolutist monarchs asserted that ultimate authority rested in the crown alone, not in representative bodies. France became the first major European state to move decisively toward absolutism, and the process was fueled by the violent religious wars of the 16th century. France's religious conflicts differed significantly from those in Germany. In the Holy Roman Empire, the Peace of Augsburg of 1555 temporarily ended warfare between Lutheran and Catholic states. In France, however, the wars did not begin until 1562 and continued until 1589. In France, the conflict was between Catholics and Calvinists, known as the Huguenots. These wars involved both noble families and common people, and the violence was severe enough to fracture French society. Amid the chaos, a new political faction emerged: the Politiques. This group, consisting of prominent Catholics and Huguenots, argued that France needed peace above all else. They believed that only one institution had the authority and strength to end the bloodshed: the monarchy. But France's monarchs at the time were weak. In 1559, Henry II died at 40 following a jousting match. As a relatively young man at his death, his children, which included 5 sons, were even younger. His eldest son and successor, Francis II, was only 15 when he ascended to the throne. After just 2 years, however, Francis died of an ear infection. The crown passed to his brother, Charles IX, who was only 9 when Francis died. Under him, the French Wars of Religion began. He would ultimately die in 1574 at 23 years old from tuberculosis without a legitimate heir. His brother, Henry III, would become king at 22. Although he was on the throne for 15 years, he never had children and was assassinated in 1589. When Henry died, the French Politiques insisted that France needed not just a new king, but a new kind of king, one with unquestioned absolute authority. They argued that only such a ruler could restore order, unify the country, and prevent further religious slaughter. They got their opportunity in 1589, when Henry of Navarre, leader of the Huguenot forces, became King Henry IV. Though a Protestant, Henry recognized that France, a predominantly Catholic nation, would never accept a Huguenot king. In 1594, he converted to Catholicism. When a friend asked why, he famously replied, "Paris is worth a mass." To reassure the Huguenots, Henry issued the Edict of Nantes in 1598, granting them religious freedom, political rights, and even the ability to maintain their own fortified towns. Henry then began rebuilding France. He never summoned the Estates General, effectively sidelining them. He filled administrative positions with members of the middle class rather than the nobility, reducing noble influence. He expanded the central government by adding experts in law and finance and sent royal officials into towns to supervise local authorities. Through these measures, Henry significantly strengthened royal power. For these reasons, Henry is often considered France's first true absolutist monarch and the foundational figure in the rise of the centralized modern state.